on webcast1live.com. The Legislative Hour with your hosts, Art Smith and Kevin Hall.
And good afternoon and welcome to the Iowa Legislative Hour. I am Kevin Hall and the illustrious Art Smith is back with us this week. Art, great to see you.
It's nice to be here. Kevin, I don't know if you noticed the little message I sent you as I was driving down here for our show. You probably didn't. Did you see it? You didn't see it. So I wanted to let you know I was on my way, right? So I sent that message out, except I typed, I'm in my way. I looked at that, I said, oh boy, I better change that.
It's kind of hard to do, be in your own way.
Yeah. Well, not for me.
Well, right. Moving on.
Yeah.
We have some great guests in the studio this week. Jake Heifel, who has become a regular on the show, representative from Johnston. Jake, it's good to see you again.
Thanks, Kevin.
And a new visitor to the show this week from Oskaloosa, Representative Guy Vanderlinden. Guy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
First off, let's just... Is his microphone working? I don't think it was on that time. Just say hi.
Say something again.
Hi. Okay. Now we got you.
Yep, I heard that.
Just give us a little bit of your background. You're now in your second term in the legislature.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Oskaloosa, graduated from the University of Iowa, went straight into the Marine Corps, spent 30 years doing that. A little bit of time after graduation from the Marine Corps in the aviation industry, and then I moved back to Iowa about 6 years ago. And as you mentioned, in 2010, a neighbor asked if I was interested in running for the legislature. Long story short, I ended up running, and here we are.
We're glad to have you. And Jake, I know you have a lot of respect for this guy.
I do, and I only call him General because I think it's a diss to call him Representative. So it's a knockdown, so I only call him General.
So just kind of tell us, and I know it's been a very slow week, and today the House, did you guys just gavel in and gavel out? Was that pretty much the gist of it?
That's pretty much the gist of it. But actually, there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Okay.
A lot of conference committees are getting together now. Education's been in session for probably a couple of weeks. That's kind of a sad story.
Yeah.
I'm on the admin and reg budget sub. We met for the second time today, and that's virtually done, I think. And I heard coming over here that we're actually going to get the property tax to a conference committee, and that's the biggest progress on property tax since I've been in the legislature. So that was really good news.
And this is something that they've batted around. Even when you were campaigning in 2010, they were talking about, we need property tax reform. Governor Branstad campaigned on that. So,
Yep.
do you think, are you hearing that something might actually get accomplished this year?
Until I heard that it was going to conference committee, I didn't think it had a chance. But this is very, very encouraging. I hope that we can actually get a few sane people at the table and get something done.
Jake, it seems like every week we're talking about the education reform here on this show. And, there were whispers that there's some progress being made. What are you hearing on the Capitol floor?
When it comes to education, I think it's going to happen. There's no way the Democrats are going to turn down that kind of money because they love the money. We talked about that last week. All they want is the money. They don't want the solution to the problem. They just want the money. So I really do think that it's going to happen. And we're staying, our Ron Jorgensen and Cecil Dolacek are staying very, very strong. The fact that if you don't take our language, you'll have 0% allowable growth, or supplemental state aid as we call it now. It's our new term for it. So if we don't have that, the schools will have zero. But all my administrators are on board. Everybody's on board. They want this. They want this to pass, 2 months ago. So hopefully when the school board's on board and the schools are on board, that makes the Republicans look well in education, which doesn't happen very often, as you know.
But the challenge being that the Democrats aren't going to want the Republicans looking good on this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is that they're going to need to score some political points in the midst of this before it can move forward. Now, you'd think that they scored enough by getting the money, but
I don't think you realize how hard it is to get our Republican caucus to 4% allowable growth.
Right.
That's no easy task at all. A lot of members are very optimistic, and if we don't have those amendments that we have, it won't happen. We don't have the votes to pass it out of there, and people are very open about that too.
With the superintendents and the school boards on board, I think they're probably taking a lot more criticism than they are getting credit for anything. They may just want to stop the pain. That would be my hope.
Yeah.
And I'm telling everybody in education that this is a good deal, and they recognize that. So I think we may get this one done.
Good.
And just to refresh people's memories, talk a little bit about allowable growth and what exactly that is for people who may not understand it.
Well, allowable growth is what the legislature allows school boards to raise in essence, taxes. It always goes to property taxes to get an additional 4% of revenue to hire teachers or do whatever schools need to do. This bill would at least partially help. We're going to give them 4% growth, but it's not going to go to property taxes. The state's actually going to provide some revenue for this, help in a big way with the schools particularly. So I think it's a step in the right direction. And as Jake pointed out, we're calling it supplemental state aid, which is what it really is, rather than allowing property taxes to go up. So.
And originally, the Senate Democrats had offered 4%. You gentlemen in the House, the Republican side, had offered 2%. You agreed to a bargain, said, hey, we'll go up to 4% if you agree to our reforms, because that's what they demanded over and over and over.
That's right.
Give us the money.
Yep.
You agreed to it, and now they're backtracking on that.
Right.
And Cornbach went on his little rant lying about that. I don't know if we talked about that last week or not, but he went off saying, I didn't say that. We have him on the governor's website with the YouTube clip, and they made it about him saying it over and over and over again. We gave him the 4%. It's there. Especially in my district, as you know, Grimes is growing like crazy.
Yes.
Johnson's growing like crazy. And on-time funding's not there. So every year we actually lose money because those students come in, say we'll get 300 new students. It's not on-time funding. So the allowable growth keeps us just barely par because of how many kids we get every year.
The interesting thing is I know that there was some kind of video response, which I never saw, but the only, response I'm seeing on Facebook and such from folks on the left to the governor's video is, that's all they have time to do is make those videos. It's like, if it gets the point across.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
messaging.
Yeah.
It did. It got the point across.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So what else is going on this week at the Capitol? I know there was debate. Well, of course, the Health and Human Services budget, which is
it came
monstrous.
over.
Yep.
It came over. We haven't done anything with it yet. We're going to run it in appropriations Monday about 3:00. We're going to do a strike after amendment in appropriations. We're going to basically take out all their language and put our budget in there because, as you can imagine, they're not even 107% of what we have. They're spending way more than we take in, which is our number one principle. I know it's so hard for people to say this, but we don't spend more than we have. I know it's a crazy thought, but you got to explain that to some people.
Yeah.
So we have a target. We're not going to go over that target under any condition. We'll be here as long as we have to be. But there's a target. We'll meet in the middle if we have to, but we will not spend more than we take in. That's it. So we're going to strike after amendment and put our budget in there. And that's going to, as you know, it's a very, very interesting budget. Yes. This is my first term. And I've already heard more about that in the last little bit for taxpayer-funded abortions and University of Iowa and Planned Parenthood. So I know it won't have it in our budget. So I go to conference committee, and hopefully this will be the year we figure that out. That's a big thing. I think it's a step in the right direction for everybody. And we might actually have a few Democrats on both sides supporting that too.
Joe Singh was the one Democrat on the Senate side from Davenport who supported it. It was Amy Sinclair, freshman senator from Allerton down in southern Iowa, who offered the amendment last week, and it was shot down narrowly on party lines, one crossover being Joe Singh. Of course, then you had the family leader rallying at the Capitol on Monday, saying, let's stop taxpayer-funded abortions. That's all we're asking. Stop the taxpayer. Is this something that has a chance of finally going through this year? What do you guys think?
It'll sail through the House.
Yeah.
It's a matter of what happens in conference committee. It might have a chance. I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I think it does. And I really think it does this year because people are understanding that even if you are pro-abortion or whatever you want to call it, pro-choice, that you still believe people should pay for your own stuff.
Right.
You shouldn't have the state paying for what you do.
Right.
And everything, all your healthcare decisions. And so that's a big step we're going to try to win here. And hopefully we can go in that direction. Of course, we have very strong people in our caucus that will not vote for it regardless. So we have to do something to meet in the middle and get common ground and understand that we can't fund that. Also, Representative Abdul Samad.
AKO Abdul Samad, yeah.
AKO. He will probably vote with us. He's thought about it. We talked to him before. He is also very pro-life. So hopefully we'll have a few members in the House too that will switch over to.
I was not aware of that.
I've talked to him about it.
It is interesting. It's good to know. It really is.
I think we can get him to switch over and vote with us this time. We talked about it. I can't remember what committee we talked about it with him. He's also pro-life. He's not the number one issue, obviously, but he's personally pro-life. So hopefully we can get him to switch over with us on that.
Very good. One of the biggest things I think I was there earlier today at the Capitol, and it just seemed kind of dead. Nobody, nothing going on in the House. The NRA president, David Keene, did drop by. I don't know if either of you guys were.
I was there.
You were there. What did you think about what he had to say?
I was very impressed with him as an individual and a speaker. Very knowledgeable, very articulate.
Yes.
And I thought he made some excellent points about the way the NRA is handling its business. That they are. He addressed the issue of the NRA buying votes and all that, and in fact they are not.
Yeah, they're being outspent by Bloomberg and the liberals, and
and they've been accused of getting money from gun makers and so forth, and only 4% of their income comes from gun manufacturers. I didn't know that. I was very impressed. I thought he did a good job. I hope the word gets out that was what was going on, not this tiny little protest that was going on out in the hall.
Although those 10 people will get plenty of publicity as opposed to the, Mr. Keene and the 125 people who are in there to hear him speak. I'm sure the 10 protesters will get plenty of publicity. But yeah, he was a very interesting guy. I know he was doing the rounds meeting with the top officials in the state today at the Capitol. And of course, Jake, last week the Senate Democrats are big, and President Obama's big push on restricting gun rights, it was shot down.
Actually, I'm happy it came to a vote so people know where people stand. I don't like it for a big vote like that at the federal level, I don't want to see it die in conference committee or something like that. I'm glad it came to a vote. I'm glad Senator Grassley stood up for us and said, no, we're not doing this. We don't mind reasonable. He doesn't mind reasonable checks, but when it comes to this, and for example, if I sold a gun to the general, it would be against the law if I didn't report that. Background check, which is, friends or my father gives me a gun when he dies, I'm in his role. That's against the law under this new bill. So that was a little ridiculous. Getting somebody in trouble for something that you didn't report between family members and friends, that's it's a little out there.
I think the best part about that was that it failed in the Senate with Democrat votes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think that the strategy was get it through the Senate and make the nasty Republicans in the House responsible for killing this gun control bill. So that was very fortunate. I think.
It was.
What does that say about President Obama's ability and his political capital if he can't even get all the Democrats on his side for a vote that's that they've been playing up for months and months and tried to make it this emotional thing after the Newtown massacre?
I think that may be the president's biggest weakness is that he is incapable of building coalitions to get his agenda done. And this is a prime example because he pulled out all the stops publicly, touring the country, bringing in witnesses or advocates and so forth, and he still couldn't get it done. That doesn't speak very well for him, I don't think.
And Jake, I don't know if you paid a bunch of attention to politics in 2008. You were a little younger.
I was
then.
in high school.
Yeah, you were still a teenager. In 2008, all he talked about is how he was going to bring everybody together and we're all going to sing Kumbaya and the world's going to love us. And, his ability to work across the aisle has been abysmal.
It's been, especially if you follow him, I follow him on Twitter, obviously, and all he talks about every 5 minutes, guns. He's good at one thing though, getting people off topic of the biggest issue in America, the national debt, and how many jobs he's killing with his debt, how much taxes and regulations he's coming. He gets people on with their emotions like any good Democrat does. He'll put it right there and talk about guns only. How many times you talk about national debt? Never. It's always guns and how we can stop these people. And so that's the one thing that he can do, and that's people that don't look into the issue and understand that. We need to worry about, yes, we stopped this gun bill, that's great. Now we need to go, what about the national debt? What about this regulation? About
maybe his view on the debt is the same as Jack Hatch's.
That's true. I liked your article, by the way.
Thank you. For people who might not have caught that, just refresh that story for us, because I love telling it again because it's such a great story.
No, it was Senator Whitford and Senator Hatch were in the back, and
Senator Jack Hatch, Democrat from Des Moines.
And Whitford, as you guys probably know, Jack Whitford from Ankeny.
Yep.
He, in the back, I was standing there waiting for him to talk to Jack about a different issue, and they were getting into it. And Senator Hatch, because we were talking about Medicaid expansion or not, he goes, "I don't give an F about the federal debt." And I was like, oh, alrighty. And Brad Zahn was sitting there, I think he was there too. Yeah, with Senator Whitford. I was like, well, the difference between me and you is I actually care about that. It's probably why I ran for,
Wow.
make sure to keep our.
I love it.
Well, fundamentally, one of the biggest fallacies of how we operate as a government is if we think that government at a certain level can't afford to pay for its own stuff, then we reach up to the next level of government to cover that stuff for everybody.
I know.
And I find it frustrating, even when it comes to schools. Okay, we go ahead and fund at the state level. We fund a tremendous amount of money for schools for all the districts, regardless of how much money and resources they have to pay for those things. Now, where's that money coming from? The same people who would be paying for it if they were to fund it locally. And so the thing that it kind of drives me crazy that we have this idea that school funding for all school districts should come from the state. Now I totally get the fact that there are some districts that lack the resources. They're lower income communities, and I'm totally up for the idea of trying to help some of those out. But this idea that we have to have a system that we're collecting money from everybody to give back to everybody. And we're doing that at the federal level, and that's why we're where we are. And people who operate at the state level in government, especially Democrats, and I've seen some Republicans this way too, have this mindset that they're going to go ahead and get what they want, get what they need from the federal government, and are always trying to figure out how to get money to cover Iowa expenses out of states like New York and California and Florida and Alaska, who got their own issues to deal with. Anyway, that's my rant for today.
Well said, though.
By the way, Kevin, speaking of Mayor Bloomberg and doing his anti-gun things, I don't know if I have a confession. I watch liberal media sometimes just to know what they're ranting about.
It's good to know what the other side is talking about.
You ever heard of the Young Turks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do watch some of their clips on YouTube sometimes. They had one, it was 2 days ago, about Mayor Bloomberg trying to increase the cigarette age to buy cigarettes only in New York City to 21. And after he failed on his pop ban, he wanted to ban any soda over 22 ounces, and now he's doing that. Guns. He's a mayor. He's not like he's the president.
Right.
He's a mayor. So that's his new target because it's so important to.
So this is the guy who, by the way, has bought a red truck to run around New York City with a big sign on the side that says "Guns kill 34 Americans every day." And then behind that truck is another truck that's financed by a Second Amendment group that says guns saved 2,100 lives every day. And it's funny to even waste his time running that truck around. That's obviously looks stupid when you see all the facts.
I thought David King, going back to the NRA president, he made a good point today. There's this video game out there called, the title of it, I think it's Kill David Keene.
Right.
I love how the anti-gun people, want to kill the pro-Second Amendment people, or
advocating violence. That's what it's doing.
I don't know. Makes no sense to me.
No.
The hypocrisy is
the hypocrisy and the irony is, we see it every day now, and it's just amazing.
You are watching the Iowa Legislative Hour. Kevin Hall, along with Art Smith, our guest, Representative Jake Heifel, State Representative from Johnston, and Representative Guy Vanderlinden from Oskaloosa. Much more to come. We're going to kind of branch out this week and talk a little bit about national politics and some other things going on around the state when we return on the Iowa Legislative Hour.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
And we're back. Welcome to the Iowa Legislative Hour. I'm Art Smith, along with Kevin Hall. And this week we have Representatives Jake Heifel from Johnston and Guy Vanderlinden from Oskaloosa. And we've had some good conversations so far about some of the goings-on in the state legislature this week. And it is a little bit of a drier week, but some other things are happening that I think are of some value. The Bush Library is being dedicated this week. Today, okay.
Yep. All for both Bush, George W. and George H.W. are there.
So they've got it all, okay.
As is Clinton and President Obama.
Wow.
So you have the four living presidents are all there.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Carter's there too, I think.
Is he? Oh,
Yeah,
that's right.
the other fifth one.
I tend to prefer to forget him. So,
where's the library located?
Dallas, Texas, Southern Methodist University.
Okay, and we've got some state legislators that are actually down there as part of the ceremony, correct?
Yes, we have two, Mary Ann Noosa from Council Bluffs and Megan Hess. They both worked at President Bush's. I'm not sure what Megan did. She was younger when she worked for him.
Maybe an intern or
something. I can't remember, but Mary was a staffer as well. And then they're down there now. Megan's from Spencer, Iowa.
Okay.
I believe Mary Ann helped out with correspondence, mail, and that sort of stuff. Representative Vanderlinden, we were talking in the break, and you have an interesting story. You actually flew President Reagan in Marine One. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I was the operations officer of Marine Helicopter Squadron 1, and in that capacity, I was one of 4 pilots at that time who actually flew as pilot in command with the president. And
what years are we talking here?
Would have been 1985 to 1988 that I was there.
Wow.
So how many flights do you think you had with him? Just a rough estimate.
I actually could look at my logbook. I can tell you the exact number. It wasn't that many. I'd say maybe 25, something like that.
What was it like?
It was tremendous. I mean, just being there, of course, is tremendous. But that particular president was especially kind to us little people, always thoughtful. Every time he came aboard, he came up in the cockpit and said hello. If you'd been around long enough that he'd recognize you, he would call you by name. Same thing when he got off. He'd thank you for your service and so forth. He and his wife were genuine people.
You know, I think that's something that people loved about Reagan is his ability to connect with people was just unseen, I think, in you know, U.S. politics.
Yep.
Prior, I mean, Nixon obviously didn't have that characteristic.
Right.
Carter maybe a little bit, but, you know, Reagan, along with his charisma and his great personality, but the ability to connect with people, I think, made him really special.
Yeah, and I saw him do it with everybody that he dealt with in any way whatsoever, whether it was little old pilots like me or it was the Secretary of State. You could see the same expressions on his face, the same way of handling individuals. He was truly a people person.
Wow.
I know this is going to sound like a dumb technical question, but how big is that helicopter on the inside?
The helicopter itself weighs a little over 20,000 pounds.
Okay.
It can carry, it can actually carry maybe 20 people.
Wow.
But we never carried that many.
Okay.
And it's because it's been made into a passenger's aircraft. It's
Right.
got tremendous air conditioning,
Oh, wow.
soundproofing. You can carry on a conversation in there, normal conversation in flight.
Wow.
It's as quiet or quieter than an airliner. So it's not intended to be big people carrier.
Sure.
It just carries big people.
Yeah.
I do have one question for you, General. So when, just like Marine or Air Force One, it's only Air Force One when the president's in it. Is that the same thing with Marine One?
Yes.
So it's just called, what's it called when the president's not in it?
Well, you just have a squadron call sign Nighthawk 1 or whatever, and then when you land and pick him up, if you can call the tower and say we're coming out of here, then you say it's Marine 1 is
Okay.
lifting, and it definitely makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck the first time you get to say that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can imagine.
You know, I don't think there's any question Reagan was the best president of my lifetime. Guy, I'm not going to say you're a little bit older, but
It's not a little bit.
but best president of your lifetime, do you think?
Oh yeah.
Why? I mean, what was it about him that made him? And still, you know, to this day, I mean, every Republican candidate who runs for president, they all talk about the legacy of Ronald Reagan.
Right. I think he was by far the best Republican president, particularly in terms of being able to relate to people, to get people to say, oh, I like this guy. And then he had an uncanny ability to sell ideas that were considered to be not particularly popular at the time.
Right.
Fiscal conservatism, all of that. It just came when you watched him on TV when he was giving you a presidential address, you walked away saying, well, yeah, why didn't I think of that before? You know, he was very persuasive without being overbearing in any way. I think that was his great strength.
Yeah, and obviously had a great ability, something that President Obama doesn't have, to work across the aisle, because with Tip O'Neill, you know, they worked together and got a lot of things accomplished together.
That's the popular opinion anyway. He certainly could work with people whether they agreed with him or not. And he was persuasive in some way or another.
Well, since we mentioned George W. Bush and the dedication of his presidential library today, I thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about the Bush legacy, because, I mean, when he left office, I think his approval rating was 33%, which was the same as Richard Nixon's when he was thrown out of office. Now it's up to 47%. And I always said all along that history would treat George W. Bush kinder than the present day did. What do you, the Bush legacy? I'm curious to get your take on it.
And we were talking
too.
a little bit. You know, the last 2 years of his presidency was a lot of turmoil, and so obviously between the economy, the housing bust, and
the wars,
and the hurricane and Katrina, there were just a number of things that kind of hit his office and hit our country hard, and obviously, you know, I think he tried his best to deal with those in the way that he thought best. Obviously, I think we all know that in hindsight, we feel like there's things that could have been done better. But I think overall, if you look at the history of his presidency, his reaction to 9/11, his stand on military actions and the managing of the military and dealing with our veterans, and and the fact that he really started to help us, not just Republicans, but I think all of us, to think more in terms of how can we make life better for people around us without having to make the government make life better for those around us. And I know that made a slight impact, and it takes a long time for those things to really meld into our psyche. And of course, now we're kind of in the opposite direction, to be quite candid with you. But I like that a lot, and I think that if we can get some of that philosophy back, I think it'll be a lot easier to look back at what he did and say, yeah, he was trying to go down the right path. We didn't quite get there, but a lot of good things were accomplished, especially during the first 6 years. And I don't know that any president could have handled those last 2 years, any much better than he did. I mean, in the midst of it. Yeah. And that's always the challenge. When you're looking at, I know there were days when I was looking at this, and I had some money in the stock market, and there were days when, there were some banking concerns that their stock dropped all the way down to 50 cents a share. And, the company I work for, Wells Fargo, their stock dropped from like 35 down to 8. And frankly, I think I was nervous myself about what was going to happen. Now, I believe things would eventually turn out okay, but none of us could sit there in the midst of that and say,
it was tough.
We can just ride this out and it'll be okay. Riding it out might end up being, I lose my house for 5 years and I'm riding it out sitting on the street, So I think it was a really tough situation. And if anybody thinks that they could have come up with a better plan when this was all happening, I'd be a little bit intrigued to find out what they thought that would be without knowing what actually would occur.
You mentioned the military aspect. General Van der Linden, just from your point of view, what are your thoughts on the George W. Bush legacy and his 8 years?
Well, my personal experience, of course, was with his father in the Gulf War, and the worst I ever saw it in 30 years in the Marine Corps was when Carter was president. We reached a real low point. We had equipment that didn't work. We didn't have equipment that we needed. Ships that didn't sail. It was bad.
Wow.
And Reagan takes some heat for causing indebtedness because he very much fixed the Defense Department. And H.W. Bush continued that and took us, I think, bravely into a war that could have been a disaster. And I think George W. Bush had the same philosophy that when we were attacked, we're going to strike back, and we did. The details of it as things unfolded in Iraq or Afghanistan, I think, are immaterial. The point is, those presidents let the world know that if you attack the United States, you will pay.
Yes.
And I think that strength is absolutely imperative for national security. The would-be enemies of this country need to believe that if they strike, they're going to get hurt worse. And that goes a long way toward keeping them from ever doing something stupid in the first place.
Yep.
I saw Laney Davis, who was a close advisor to the Clintons and a lifelong Democrat, made the point today in a column, I think it was in Politico.com, that in terms of Iraq and the WMD, the whole narrative is, Bush lied. Well, Davis makes a point that the Clinton White House absolutely believed Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons, as did the vast majority of the intelligence community.
Yeah, and I think you could make a case that those chemical weapons slipped across the border into Iran and Syria.
Yes.
So I'm still not buying that they weren't there.
And today we're finding out that now Chuck Hagel, the new defense secretary, he believes Syria not only had but used chemical weapons, sarin gas.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yep.
So, which supposedly was President Obama's
it was a red line.
Yep. And remember that Saddam used them on his own people at one point. So he certainly had them.
And look, you know what? you can come up with 5 different, 10 different, 50 different reasons for either not or going ahead and attacking Saddam Hussein. from my standpoint, the fact that he was killing his own people, the way that he was in mass numbers, you know, back at the end of World War II, there was a plaque laid at Auschwitz. I believe it was at Auschwitz. That said, "Never again." I mean, if you've ever been to and really been to a concentration camp and seen the horrors that were committed upon human beings, there's just no way that situations like Iraq and Darfur and you know, all these places that continue over these past years to have acts of genocide being committed upon their own people, and you know, and we think that we can't do anything about it. I don't know what we were saying when we said never again.
Jake, I'd like to get your take just from a young person's point of view. You know, most people your age were very anti-George Bush, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. And
I'll tell you something. Bush's second term was when I was 14. The very end of his term, I was 17 and I caucused. Actually, it's kind of weird because I'm not that way anymore, but I caucused. I was actually 17, but if you're 18 by the election, you can caucus. I caucused for Mike Huckabee. Okay. I kind of like the flat tax idea in the 23%, whatever he had. I like that. So I read the book and I caucused for him. But out of the group, and I was in the government class my senior year, and all the teachers were hammering Bush every day. Everything's Bush's fault. The world's falling apart because of President Bush. And no child left behind. That was a huge thing. I remember that. We talked about that every day. And it was Bush and Ted Kennedy. They always throw that part out. They don't mention that Ted Kennedy was involved. They always blame Bush on that. But anyway, continue. Yeah, you're exactly right. And then I would get hammered. And I actually got in a lot of trouble when I was in high school for speaking a pretty conservative mind when I was 17, 16, going there. I know this might surprise you a lot, Kevin, but I would say something like, Jake, you can't say that. I'm like, you just don't let people, you know, they spew their opinion and they don't let you go, well, here's another point of view. Like, oh, you're too young to know. And I'm like, you know, but like they would teach you something. It's not like teaching or like when you value opinion. It's more like indoctrination, telling people this is the right way to do it. This is the what so on. But then I went to Iowa, which you know is the most liberal college. But I was voted back home in Johnson. I think I only voted there once, but also so there, and that was just Obama came there. I think. He came there probably
numerous times,
6-7 times in 6 months, and he would just get every student out. The get out to vote that year was absolutely unbelievable how he did that. But they don't even know. He would just talk to them on the points. They don't quite pay taxes yet. It's kind of like when I go back talk to my kids in high school and they lobby me on issues. It's never big issues. When I go door knock, it's property tax, income tax are too much. But when I talk to them, it's kind of my driver's license at 14, you know, or something like that. But they don't pay taxes yet, so they don't quite understand it. So it's a little bit different. But I think that as we move forward, Bush will not be portrayed as what he was then. It's getting a lot more model. It's kind of like when President Clinton comes back and helps out Obama, because you forget the bad things he did. You know, as time goes on, unless you follow it like we follow it, you forget. So like, oh, I think times were good back then. It's always a nostalgia. Times were better back then. So I think it's kind of the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Of course, we saw terrorism rear its ugly head again just recently in Boston. And, you know, one of the debates that's been going on kind of between the libertarian wing of the Republican Party and more mainstream conservatives and Republicans is there have been a lot of attacks and criticism of the Boston police saying, you know, they were forcing people from their homes at gunpoint and there was martial law in Boston. Representative Vanderland, what do you think about that? I mean, here they are. They're looking for a terrorist that had already killed 3 people and injured 178 with bombs. They murdered a police officer, got into a shootout with cops, badly wounded another. They were throwing bombs at cops, and here they're trying to find this guy. So they're going from house to house. And there's some people in the Republican Party, including in leadership of the Republican Party of Iowa, saying, you know, this is unconstitutional what they're doing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to know all the details of what the Boston police were doing. But if I were involved with the Boston police and I had these 2 knuckleheads surrounded in whatever size area it was, I think I'd be inclined to do whatever it takes to make sure I get them.
And isn't that part of our civic duty to comply with their request to, hey, let us come in and search your home just to make sure they're not hiding out in your basement.
I can't imagine anybody actually living that close to the situation saying, no, I don't want you to come in. I mean, like the guy finally turned up in a boat.
Right.
Some guy went out to smoke a cigarette or something and just happened to see him. I mean,
well, and the thing is that I don't think anybody would be sitting there saying, well, I know that he's not in my house. You may not know that.
Right.
And, you know,
he could have been holding people by gunpoint.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, or just to have somebody come in and certify that, well, he's not in your house. I think I would appreciate that if I was living there.
Yeah.
Jake, your thoughts on this topic?
I don't know all the details either. Actually, I know more details than I thought I was going to because we're now Facebook friends, and I saw you ranting for a good 8 or 9 hours, and I was like, oh, thanks, Kevin, for keeping posting on it. I kept reading the articles. And so, besides that is, I don't, if they were forcibly doing it, yes, there's a problem, but if a cop came to my door and he's like, oh, we search your home, I'd be like, yeah, that's no problem whatsoever. But some of these rumors about gun points, there's no way that's true.
I mean, there is a video, and they were, banging on doors loudly, and they had, full SWAT gear and all that, and they were outside with guns, and they were telling people, come out of the house, go down the street, let us, search you, make sure you're not carrying a bomb, whatever. I mean, if you look at, there's one video like that, and it's, we don't know the full context. It doesn't look real good when you watch the video, but it looks like they were banging on that door for a long time. And, you have to wonder, and then like 5 people slowly come out of the house. So you have to wonder, what were these 5 people doing? But, to me, and somebody made the point, well, the founders must be turning in their graves to see what's going on here. And I'm like, okay, let's go back to colonial times. Let's say the British came in and, attacked and killed women and children and civilians. I'm pretty sure George Washington and Thomas Jefferson would be okay with going house to house to look for one of these guys if they were hiding out in a neighborhood.
I agree. Sometimes we get a little bit wrapped up in principles when there's a bona fide emergency going on.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the purpose behind the principles that we have that we're talking about. The purpose is that we don't want police officers just being able to wander into our homes and find things that we're doing that are, quote, illegal.
Right.
Because they just said, I'm going to come into your house. Now, if these guys had come into the house and said, we're trying to find this guy so that he doesn't kill anybody else, and then 20 minutes come out and say, look at all this marijuana we found, then I'd say, okay, that stops.
Yeah.
That stops.
But that's not what they were doing.
No.
They were just making sure there was not a dangerous terrorist hiding out in the house.
You can conform to the principles and still do what needs to be done for the safety of the community.
Absolutely. You are watching the Iowa Legislative Hour, powered by Webcast One Live. Back with Jake Heifel and Guy Vander Linden, state representatives, along with my co-host Art Smith, in just a moment when the Iowa Legislative Hour continues.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And welcome to the final segment of this week's edition of the Iowa Legislative Hour. Kevin Hall, along with Art Smith, our guests this week, State Representative Jake Heifel from Johnston and General Guy Vanderlinden from Oskaloosa. Want to talk a little bit about elections because this is Iowa. And it's always election season in Iowa.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Even though election day isn't, for another year and 9 months or whatever it is, it's always election time in Iowa. And of course, the big thing is the U.S. Senate race. The Democrats have their candidate. It's obvious. Bruce Braley is going to be their nominee. I don't even think anybody else will get in on the Democrat side. If they do, they'll get slaughtered because Braley's, the golden child, as he has been for many years. But the Republican side, we still don't know who's going to get in. The IowaRepublican.com, the website I work for, kind of had a power rankings today. And, of course, Steve King is at the top of the list. Everybody, if he gets in, he'll obviously be the Republican nominee, or at least most people think. So, in fact, I doubt anybody else would want to run against him. But it's looking more and more doubtful that he'll get in. Somebody who has emerged this week as a candidate, in fact, I spoke with her earlier today, Senator Joni Ernst, who you gentlemen work with up at the Capitol from Red Oak in southwest Iowa, a fellow veteran as yourself. What do you think about Joni Ernst as a potential U.S. Senator or Senate candidate?
I haven't had a whole lot of exposure to the senator. We have been on a couple of committees together, and I've had some conversations with her. She's nobody's dummy, that's for sure. Yeah. And I think she might be a viable candidate.
I think so too. I mean, she's very bright, a military background, comes from a conservative district. She's a solid conservative. And I think having her in the race, I think it would make for an interesting primary. Of course, somebody else who's basically said if Steve King does not run, I'm getting in. And that's U.S. Attorney Matt Whitaker.
Yep.
Your thoughts on Matt?
I think that Matt, he's a good. I think he'd be a good candidate. I think he would take some positions that are going to be well received within the party.
Jake is a former Hawkeye football player.
There's that too.
We're both Hawks here.
I better not bring up my allegiance then.
Which is
Iowa State.
Yeah, that's okay. You don't have to mumble it. Just blurt it out. Be proud of it.
We're proud of the Go Hawks.
I understand.
I was at a fundraiser at Matt Whitaker's house actually for Mike Brown. Last election season, as we talked about, it's always election season in Iowa, but last election season, great guy. He works with Representative Chris Hagan now, who's here last week.
Right.
Chris is a good friend of mine, but Matt's a great guy. I've met him more than once. He's been posting on Twitter and Facebook that he's ready. If King doesn't run, he's going. And if Bill Northey runs, he's still going to run. And I think he can do a lot of good things because there hasn't been a lot of people from Central Iowa. It's always that could be kind of nice. Have somebody from Central Iowa running.
Yeah, I think Bill would be an awfully good senator. I'm not sure how well he would do election-wise, only because as much as he may have visibility at the state level in his office at where he is now, I don't know that a lot of people really know a whole lot about him.
And I'm hearing that it's looking doubtful that he'll get it. I know there's been a lot of talk about him, but
he's an awfully good guy, though. I really
great guy.
I really think he would do a fantastic job.
Secretary of State Matt Schultz is considering getting in. Any thoughts on Matt Schultz? If you guys have dealt with him much at the Capitol.
Oh, I love Matt Schultz. Great guy. He comes since we're on state government. He's actually the chair. I'm the vice chair of state government. We deal with Matt Schultz and their team a lot. Charlie Smith and those guys come because all the bills have to come through state government, so we deal with them a lot. But I really like Matt Schultz. I did a fundraiser. We did a fundraiser for him. Oh, that was a while ago, but he's going to be able. I don't think he's going to do it this year. I really don't think he's going to run. But as a person, I really like Matt. Great guy. His staff's great. Helps us out. And his voter ID stuff, his approval was at 80% almost.
Yeah, 72%.
Yeah, something like that.
General Van der
Yeah, he
Linden.
also won an election he wasn't supposed to win.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice quality.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
it is.
as a statewide office at that.
Right.
Yeah, I think, thinking back to that, and I worked on Governor Branstad's campaign. Of the statewide candidates, I think, everybody knew Northey was going to get reelected, and everybody knew Vought was, but of the three contenders between Schultz, Jameson, and Brenna Finley. Schultz got the least amount of publicity and came up and surprised everybody by defeating Michael Morrow.
And I think the fact is that he ran on one issue that really resonates with people in this state. So I think that's really the key to how that worked out for him.
And now he's running, well, if he stays in the Secretary of State's office and runs again, basically Obama's Iowa campaign manager is running against him. So a career political operative wants to be in charge of our elections.
Yes.
Somehow I have a problem with that.
Shouldn't laugh about that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that, Kevin.
Moving on, of course, Kim Reynolds. There was lots of talk about the lieutenant governor running for this U.S. Senate seat. I personally never thought she was seriously going to consider getting in. But she, obviously there was tons of speculation in the media, and she announced this week she would not be running, which I think is another indication that Governor Branstad is going to run again in 2014, which, if he completes that term, would make him the longest serving governor in U.S. history.
That includes pre-colonial times, too.
Yes.
Remember, they used to appoint him for life. Like, literally, they go, hey, you're governor till the day you die. And so that's pretty cool stat.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on another term with Governor Branstad and the leadership that he's provided, after 12 years out of the office, coming back, knocking off an incumbent governor, which had not been done in many years, and the work he's done the last 3 years.
Yeah, I very much admire the governor. I'm glad he's back. It's nice to have somebody in that office that sort of knows where the bodies are buried, knows all the levers to pull. He's a very, very effective governor and extremely popular. I very much hope that he runs again.
I will tell you something about Governor Branstad. No one loves being governor more than Governor Branstad. No one has shaken more hands in this state than Governor Branstad. He is 100 miles an hour every day. He's 65, 66?
Somewhere, somewhere
he's
around.
even older than I am.
Wow.
And he's, I was born in 90, so he's a lot older than I am, but he runs laps around me. First time I met him, he got up about 6 at the Capitol by 7. He was back in my district by 7 o'clock, had not stopped. Him and the state trooper just go around. He comes to Johnston, the Pioneer, all the time. He was like, his staff will shoot me a text. Hey, we're coming here at the forum. We'll talk at a forum. He'll answer questions publicly. Do you know what that does for a governor? Once you talk to your governor personally and you ask him questions at a forum, come to my forum or come to Pioneer or John Deere or Hy-Vee, for example, that's it. You're going to vote for him forever. He took the time to come to your district and talk to you and vote for you. He loves what he does, and one person that will make it close if he runs is Vilsack. Besides that, he will smoke anybody, probably 55, 58%.
I can tell you, just going off what you said, I can tell you, on the campaign, going to these small communities out in, extreme northwest Iowa or southwest Iowa, wherever it might be, there were so many times people said to him, thank you for coming here, because we haven't had a governor come here in 4 years since Chet Culver first ran for the office. He got in office and did not tour these communities hardly at all, if ever. He didn't go out and breach out into the area, and that's part of why he got his tail kicked in November 2010. But you're right, Governor Branstad is a tireless, not only campaigner, but tireless worker.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing that I notice about the governor is that he really seems to listen to people, even if he doesn't agree with what's being said. And I think for any politician, and you guys can take notes if you want, if you disagree with me, but you listen to what I say and can adequately communicate what I've said in your response, I'm more likely to engage with you and possibly at some point even vote for you, even if we disagree on some things that may be important to me. And I think that's a quality that we've lost in a lot of our politicians. I know that, I occasionally will contact Senator Harkin's office and Senator Grassley's office if I see something that I think I want to express my opinion about. And I'm not going to go into what happens with Grassley's office because usually we're on the same page anyway. But when it seems like anytime I contact Harkin's office and I end up with a staffer, the conversation goes something like this. On issue such and such, on this bill, my opinion about this, and I'd like you to convey it to the senator, is such and such. And the response almost always is, well, let me explain why you don't understand what you're talking about. And I just find it terribly arrogant for a staffer, let alone the politician themselves, to take an approach. I mean, obviously their staff has been trained to take this approach. Explain to our constituents why we are going in the direction we're going. That's their mission, is to convince me to change my mind, not to listen to what I have to say as a constituent. And I just find that very aggravating. So
I loved it last year. Harkin had a couple of staffers that he sent on around the state, and they promoted it as Harkin's staff would be doing a 99 county tour. Not Harkin, nice. not Bahama Tommy,
nice,
who rarely comes back to Iowa, but his staff apparently, I don't know if they made it to all 99 counties, but that's how they promoted it. His staff was, I mean,
he still lives in Iowa. Make sure he still lives there. That address here.
I couldn't believe they would even publicly admit that. Ooh, a couple of flunky staffers are going to go around. You know, when you have Senator Grassley, who's probably already halfway done or more with his 99 county tour.
Right.
Governor Branstad, Lieutenant Governor Reynolds, going all 99 counties every single year. And that's how you do things.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm sure, Jake, I know you take part in the voter forums in your community. Have you been doing?
Yeah. We have one in Oskaloosa that's every 2 weeks, and I consider it the best attended in the state. There's usually 100 or more people there.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive.
That's a lot, because I've gone to quite a few of them this year, or, you know, around different areas of the state, and do not see crowds of 100. I see, you know, maybe 40. It may be the most that I see. What are your constituents asking you about?
Oh, they run the gamut. The big ones are always education and taxes in all forms. Those always rise to the surface, and then whatever the issue du jour is. But those things are difficult, especially when I was a freshman. I found them difficult because they knew more about the issues than I did.
Oh, right.
And you kind of get that deer in the headlights feeling, you know. But it's good for politicians, because it forces you to learn the issue, to be ready with an answer, and to think about just maybe that's more important than I thought. So,
and these are people who, in large part, they come armed with their pet projects. They might be, you know, a superintendent, or, you know, heavily involved in, you know, parks and streams and that sort of thing. So everybody has their own particular issue, and they demand you know as much or more about it as they do.
And they even sit at the conservation table and the farm table and the educator table.
Wow.
And I'll tell you one thing is that I've always prided myself in is I've responded to everybody. I have responded to absolutely every email. Sometimes I get the generic ones. They're not in my district. I don't respond to those. But if they're in my district, they let me know they're there, I will respond to you. I will call you back. I get phone calls. You couldn't imagine. I always call them back. And I'll tell you one thing. That's what it takes. The thank you get for just saying, here, I took the time out of my day to call you. You can call me whenever. Have my cell phone number. If you can't get a hold of me, I think my cell phone number's on the Iowa website for legislator, because obviously I don't have my own phone, because 21st century here. It's the only cell phone I have. So, and that's the way it is. If you have to respond to them, always respond. If you don't agree, I'll respond to. I do not support Medicaid expansion, but I appreciate your position. Thank you for your concern. You know.
Yeah. Politics in Iowa is absolutely 100% retail. It's all forums, phone calls, knocking on doors, responding to emails. If you don't do that, I don't think you're going to get very far. I am astonished at your report on what Senator Harkin gets away with.
It was surprising to me too.
She's not running again either.
The last caucus, I think it was CNN that had the guy said, they asked people, they go, well, what do you think about this candidate and this candidate? They would say, well, I haven't met him yet. That's kind of the Iowa approach. It's like, if you haven't met him yet, or he or she, it's, well,
don't have an opinion.
I don't have an opinion yet.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thanks for coming in this week. This has been a fun discussion.
I appreciate the opportunity. This has been fun. Thank you very much.
Glad to have you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Jake Heifel and Guy Vander Linden, state representatives. Art, great to be with you again this week.
Same with me. Looking forward to next week.
That's it for this week's edition of the Iowa Legislative Hour. Have a great weekend.